What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through. Times don't fly too high. Be sure to keep the ground in sight. Fly forever if you keep it tight. Love the world but keep the sky on your mind.
You're live.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to another FPVFC Town Hall. Looks like we got a full crew here tonight. So super awesome to have everybody here. Got a little bit of the news, a little bit FAA sponsoring the future of aviation. So we'll see what that looks like. And some interesting news on Part 107 versus commercial pilots. So it'll be kind of an interesting news. And then a little bit of something from my home state. So let me get shared here. So first up, this Blunty shared this with us, and we wanted to share it with you guys. So Rush has come out stating that many of their customers have complained about buying fake Max Solos on AliExpress. And Rush BV is going on record saying that they do not have an official store on AliExpress. These are counterfeit. And please purchase on their official website. So do not look for Rush FPV stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of counterfeit stuff going on AliExpress. However, this specifically, and it lists the 3 stores that are selling the fake Max Solos, which would be Mars Space FPV, XX Space Store, and Shop 2664191.
I'll just point out too that looking into it, it seems like some of these stores are selling products that I would assume are legitimate, or somehow they're cloning Cadex Vistas, which I really doubt, right? I think that we're seeing a case where these are just middlemen selling a cloned product they got out of a factory or something, right? Just how it works. And these are legitimately counterfeits. They're attempting to be identical. They have the Rush stickers and stuff, so these may have even come out of a similar factory and just had some different parts put on them and stuff. Like they show the fans are different or things like that. It's hard to tell exactly what happened there. So just be aware that some of these fakes are out there. I think they're claiming that they don't work as well. They certainly are claiming that they're they have the name on them and they didn't make them, but right. I don't know about performance, and obviously they won't support them later down the line. So
yeah, so definitely a big deal. Just be careful what you're buying right now. I know things are getting tight in terms of some of the components that people are looking for, but just don't waste your hard-earned money. Do the research.
Yep. In case you don't know, the analog VTX prices are going to go up. Anything that's using the chip, the RTC RCT 05 chip, which is the rich wave chip. I believe because of the wars, they're skyrocketing in price because there being so many analog VTXs. Yeah. We reported on the news a while back that 533 had an order pulled and it got sent out to bind-and-fly manufacturers instead, and presumably those were to replace stock that was replaced for the war and stuff. But like there's Open VTX as another solution with a different chip. And there's a couple different options, but those aren't like widely available. And there's not a lot of companies who have Open VTX designs and all that kind of stuff. So we'll see a transition happen there, just so you're aware.
Yep. So good, definitely good to know. All right, so on with the FAA. So the FAA has announced their 2024 recipients of the Aviation Workforce Development Grants, where they're giving, basically granting out $13.5 million to sponsor future aircraft pilots, whether that's in the commercial UAV space or in actual manned aviation. So there's a list here of different schools, different whether it's counties or if it's individual universities receiving grants. So entire school districts getting grants. So they're definitely trying to fund that future. So that's a good thing from the FAA.
So
I know
some big differences between the cost or the grants to some of those places.
well, some of them are entire school districts, so I think they're trying to fund multiple schools, whereas some of them are individual schools themselves. So I think that that accounts for some of the variation. So like this one's flight simulators, and I imagine the schools applied for these for certain pieces of technology or certain programs, and it seems like that's the case, and that those amounts kind of match what they were asking for. So good on them. I mean, this is definitely a good push to help continue to fund that and bring new people into the interest, whether that's in our hobby or within the manned aviation airspace. So, I know we bag on the FAA quite a bit, but a little bit of good that comes out of what they do is always a positive. So, this was an interesting article. So it says the impact of drone industries on flight schools, and I'm not going to go through the whole article, but this is an interesting chart here. So the blue line represents commercial pilots, and the orange line represents Part 101 or 107 pilots. And the interesting part here is that the number of Part 107 pilots has far outpaced uh, commercial airline pilots. And I mean, while that's certainly a given, I think at this point, in terms of the accessibility of the technology and the flight training and whatnot that goes into it, it's definitely interesting to see how far gone, like how far outpacing it is. And you can see here the number of holders of commercial pilot's license has stayed pretty stagnant over the last several years. Kind of, I'm going to go, somewhere between probably 275, 260,000. Whereas Part 107's broach north of 300,000. And it's definitely a key indicator of where the technology is going, what people are doing for business in those certain categories, and I imagine the popularity of schools that are transitioning over to Part 107 training. And I mean, you can look at Pilot Institute, right? They offer both types of training. However, it definitely seems like Part 107 is easily the big shareholder of all that. So
The economics for the individual is also important. For the airlines have adopted something akin to the hospital situation in the United States, where you're pretty much you have effectively a residency if you want to be a commercial airline pilot, where you starve for the first number of years, and bunking with mates and not making enough money to, and then dashing off to go fly a regional jet is the norm in the U.S. And so this, if you get your 107, you already you have some understanding about a specific industry, you can start making money, and you don't have the bills that you add up in order to get the hours and the certifications to fly commercial.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't know specifically the hour requirements off the top of my head for being a commercial airline pilot, but I'm sure the number of hours behind the stick are significant. And whereas, like a private pilot's license, which is something I've looked into, and I know many people have that, but that requirement's much less, but it's still a great financial burden to get to that point. So,
There's also the aspect of a Part 107 pilot becomes a fantastic candidate to be a commercial. Yeah,
Because there's not
absolutely.
on 107,
There's
right?
there's a 107 is a renewal, and you have to research. Similar
Right.
commercial is the same way. You have to research, and there is a
Okay.
medical requirement,
mhm.
and then you have to also maintain your what's the right word. You have to fly the aircraft in order to maintain certification of the specific type and class aircraft.
Airframe, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And there's an age out too on commercial airline pilots too.
Yeah, that may be more the airline itself. I'm not sure the FAA has a timeout, but I absolutely, I'm stretching here. I
65.
absolutely could be wrong.
65 years old. So
Ah, dang.
are you
I'm
out,
on the,
Dave?
I'm done. This month, I'm done.
I mean, we knew you were old, but apparently too old to fly now.
That's it.
All right. So I just thought it was an interesting statistic, and obviously we're a year behind on data here, but I'm sure. I mean, the trend of the graph just continues to grow, and as we've said multiple times, is the drone industry is growing. They're always finding a new way of utilizing drones to do things that were done in other ways, whether that's crop maintenance or inspection or surveying or delivery, or I mean the ors can continue and continue. So um it's still a burgeoning industry, but at this point it's a large industry. So
Also, the
um
last thing I'll say is, unlike commercial where you're going to get a license to do it for a while, like there's people who get a 107 to do a job for a friend. Like,
mhm.
you know, like I've never used my commercial 107 technically. You know what I mean? Like, like I've never actually needed it for anything I've done. I got it just in case for two things that I was going to do, and I never used them. Like, so I think there's a lot of cases like that where people just have a 107 and never like use it twice. Where a commercial airline pilot's going to be like 5, 10, however long, you're going to have a
Your
career
career,
doing
yeah.
that in almost all cases. So yeah,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
interesting statistic. The other thing is demand is like we see how slow that commercial rise is. Like what's the cap for the amount of pilots you actually need, and how many do they
Mhm.
want, and like what are the incentives and stuff like you talked about, Dave, the lifestyle and stuff. So but definitely interesting.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
once you get through the indentured servitude, it's a good income.
Yeah.
Particularly large airlines or cargo. Cargo flying cargo is a good gig. I have
Mhm.
friends who fly for UPS, and it's a good company and well paid.
Yeah, and I think I mean, the other big thing is it's not like they're churning out new airframes every day, right? So,
In fact,
we've got
they're taking some offline now and then.
Yeah.
Too
This
soon. Too
the,
soon.
yeah, it's got Boeing energy all over.
doors. But at the same time,
Did you s-
I mean, even still, I mean, a lot of the airplanes in the sky, you'd be shocked at how old they actually are, right? I mean, they definitely push some several decades. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. So I mean, I can see why that's maintaining. However, I'm curious in
Yeah.
terms of the shortage, right?
Yeah, the view is that there is a shortage. We did a DAC
Yeah.
tasking that looked at education, and there's a gap in the United States that is growing and growing worse quickly. In
Mhm.
addition, there are fewer AOPA sites number of owners and pilots of private planes as also declining, and that's another source of commercial pilots and privates. The AOPA had their numbers were 800,000 private pilots about 10 years ago. That's now down to 600,000.
Oof. Jeez.
Yeah, it's a meaningful reduction.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right. So next up, we touched on this maybe a meeting ago or 2 meetings ago, but we were talking about utilizing drones for tracking deer carcasses in hunting scenarios. And there's a gentleman in Pennsylvania who uses drones to try and locate wounded deer. And whether you agree with hunting or not, the case for this is that the deer has already been either injured or killed, and you're tracking down to be able to harvest that, right? And not waste it. So Joshua Wiggenroth of Downingtown plans to he was convicted. He plans to appeal the verdicts handed down on Thursday by Lancaster County. The case apparently marked the first time anyone has been cited and tried in Pennsylvania for using a drone to recover a dead game animal, and it hinged on whether Wiggenroth was involved in hunting as defined by state law. So there's definite regulations when it comes to hunting, whether that's tags or what equipment you can use. And I would agree that using a drone to track deer in order to hunt them would definitely not be the right thing to do. But in this case, tracking down something that's already been harvested to a certain degree is a little bit different. So he's planning on appealing, and I don't know. What do you guys think on this?
I think
Yeah.
part of the problem for me on this is just that maybe your lawyer was just wrong. Like there's words written in here, right? And I doubt that it says you can track an injured deer, but you can't track a fully live deer. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's the problem here is when you think about logically what has to happen, it's very possible the deer is not dead when you're tracking it. And the law
Right.
probably doesn't differentiate from a deer that's been wounded or has been attacked, hurt by a hunter versus a deer that hasn't. I would
Right.
in reference to the drone, right? And that's the kind of the question is it seems more like legislature that needs to happen, not like
Right.
a fight that needs to happen in an appeals case. But more power to him. I hope it works out because he's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
It's just the question is, I can't imagine the law is written to cover this, but obviously his lawyer wants to, appeal. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
and where I live in upstate New York, and this is hunting and fishing country, so I cannot. I mean, the fact that this is in Pennsylvania, not New York, that's surprising to me. This is just the sort of thing that New York legislature would come up with. Interesting that they have not yet, but I side with the with the drone operator on this one.
Yeah.
There's so many deer in upstate New York that they are an absolute menace on the roads, and you
Sure.
cannot. And with if we doubled the hunting in New York State, we couldn't diminish the population. So
Yeah, this time of
But
year is not a
wouldn't
great
be
time of
a
year to
bad
go
thing.
for a bike ride along the highways in Minnesota as the deer are thawing out from the winter.
No,
The
boy.
ditches are full of them,
Oh,
and they smell. It's gross.
Jeez.
yeah,
No drone
like I said, I
necessary to
think
find them.
I think the problem is wording. I think
Right.
that's my whole concern with this. I think from every other standpoint, I think it's correct, but what's the wording of the law? Because
Yep.
you have to interpret the wording, and then if it's not covered, it's not covered, right? So
Yep.
Yeah. So interesting case. So it'll be interesting to see how his appeal turns out. But yeah. So on the note, along with Florida and Texas, and I can't think who else. My home state of Arizona is attempting to join the movement to ban DJI drones. So there's that, and so it says legislators in Arizona are lining up in the procession of authorities across the U.S. looking to ban the use of drones made by global leader DJI, citing the company's China origins as motivating their security justifications. Arizona Senate Bill 1500 doesn't name DJI or any other drone maker specifically, but coming amid the rash of national and state initiatives to blacklist the company's craft, there's little question about who the proposal is targeting.
What does it say in the proposal that, how does it say anything without naming DJI, but that's who
It's
they're talking about?
because they're probably naming
Covered
specific countries.
countries.
Yeah, exactly. So let me pop this up. I'll look at this in a second. But topping the list of nations prescribed by the Arizona bill is DJI home China, as well as the not exactly consumer and enterprise mass producing countries of Russia, Syria, North Korea, and Cuba. Like the pending U.S. House bill sleeping to slap a de facto prohibition of DJI drone operation in the U.S. by blocking their access to universally used FCC infrastructure, the Arizona text is still in the early legislative phases of gestation, but both passed committee hearings this month and faced little opposition from Republicans dominating the respective chambers considering each.
Yeah, I'm
think
sure
the
we're
House
all
bill-
worried about going to buy a drone from North Korea.
Yeah,
I
top of
think
my
the House
list.
bill specifically says DJI. I think there's they're trying to add a paragraph that names DJI, which is kind
Right.
of different.
Yeah, Lee
But,
Stefanik's bill. Arizona's also in the news this week on a FAA or not FAA but aviation basis. One of your senators, Senator Sinema, announced that
Stepping
she will step
not
or
re-elect,
not run for re-election.
Yep.
That's significant for us because she has been the chair of the Senate Aviation Subcommittee. So
Yep.
we'll now have likely a new chair come December 2024, or
Yep.
pardon me, January
Yeah, I was going to
2025.
say. Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely interesting. I mean, we still haven't solidified our reauthorization act, so there's a stumbling block there. Call that
while
what it
they
is, but
they made their own country list at the bottom here.
yep. So we got China, Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Russia, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, and Syria. So that's
Yeah,
super
Josh,
awesome.
I'm told that right now it's looking like about 11 states have potential legislation, proposed legislation that are similar. So I was on a call earlier. There's a unnamed university that's going to be sponsoring a cybersecurity study of not only DJI but also some of the American-based aircraft, which I think will be really interesting because I think it's just as important that if we're going to exploit any vulnerabilities with imported aircraft, we should also look at the domestic side of it too. So hopefully more to follow.
Probably a university from the state of Florida that has aviation in its background and has the initials ER.
If they're doing it as well, I'm unaware, but that sounds like something that Embry would do as well.
Yep.
So, I mean, this is not just going to impact DJI. This would impact, other manufacturers as well, like Autel.
Right.
Yeah, they're being very broad with this in terms of just naming countries and not companies. But obviously, this is the covered list that has come from the federal agencies as well. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. So, it's a class one. Couple of things. Class 1 misdemeanor for a provider of any flight mapping software to allow a user to fly a drone over a sensitive location, unless the user is law enforcement agency in the state. It's a Class 1 misdemeanor for a user of a drone not using flight mapping software to fly a drone over a sensitive location.
So if you were to say use iNav to fly over a sensitive location, who gets in trouble for that?
The user.
Not
So
the software?
that's not a flight mapping software.
Yeah,
Well,
I was just going to ask.
It doesn't matter because the L get you in trouble if you're not a law enforcement agent. That's the idea here, right? Like you have to use flight mapping software if you're not law enforcement, you can't be there.
Are they construing mapping and navigation? Are they conflating the two?
Well, I was just sort of reading it as like DJI would get in trouble for allowing you to fly there, as well as the person probably would get in trouble. But what if you're using software that was open source or written by not a company they can sue?
Here, here.
You'd still get in
So,
trouble, but
yeah, definitely interesting. I mean, the federal regulation prevents you from flying over sensitive sites already. This
Right.
is just a duplicate, and it's unfortunate because Arizona, I've held Arizona up on a pedestal to a certain degree over the years because they are a very drone friendly state.
you've got some good
Um,
laws about parks and whatnot, right?
Yeah, so it's actually an Arizona state law that number one, cities or any kind of localities cannot pass drone regulation, that only the state can, and the state has mandated at least one park per city has to allow model aviation and drone flights. And that's definitely the case. In fact, STEM-C has marked FRIAs in a lot of those parks here in Arizona, being STEM-C is Arizona based. And the reasoning that they have put from the UIS facility map that I was actually looking at this today was state mandated or city mandated aircraft park. So good on them for doing that, for establishing FRIAs in those parks. But I mean, I've held them up to this pedestal, and then we just have to go with the flow on this one, apparently.
Jeez.
So
This I'm reading this while you're talking about this is buck wild insane. Like this is a bunch of people who don't know anything about technology writing a bill. Which is what happens, right? But
that's the case.
they're talking about
remember-
which
That happens for all bills.
yeah, they're just like you have to, do these things to be in compliance, and it's like any transfer of data in an isolated network to a network where the agency's data is held requires running an antivirus. Using an antivirus or anti-malware software, a scan of the destination of transferred data using antivirus or malware software, and that's it. That has nothing to do with I don't know. This is just insane.
Yeah, I mean,
I would say some high school kids probably wrote it, but that would be insulting to high school kids.
yeah,
Yeah,
they'd probably do a
let's
better
pick an
job.
arbitrary list of countries. Let's pick an arbitrary list of reasons why we're going to block drones that could be approved. It's just
They just need to be honest and say why they're trying to block them. We don't like China, so we're blocking it.
Right.
well, it's just use a little I don't know, man. If you're going to do it right. Write the real bill that would do this, not the garbage bill that doesn't do this at all, because you can easily satisfy those requirements and still be totally open.
Well, if the whole point of it is just to make people think you're doing something, but you don't actually end up doing anything, but you're trying to
Right.
get votes, then this works perfect for that.
That's very true. Let's put up barriers that aren't real barriers, and anybody who can read knows that aren't real barrier. That's how the government works, right?
Seems like it lately.
Goodness. That's crazy. Yeah, so definitely super fun. All right, go Arizona. So apologies, this was not at the top. So F1 Formula One racing is now interested in Red Bull's 220-mile-per-hour drone for filming during races. This comes after the video that they put out of the drone chasing the F1 car.
All right, which drone took a photo of this drone flying that fast chasing the car to get this thumbnail?
I'm pretty sure it was photoshopped. So Red Bull showcased incredible footage from high-speed drone racing during filming day, sparking F1's interest in potentially using the technology for race week coverage. However, there are significant challenges to overcome before implementation. Obviously, big ones being safety concerns and restrictions around crowds, not cows, crowds. Formula One has expressed keen interest in Red Bull's cutting-edge Drone One technology, which captured draw-dropping footage of Max Verstappen's car during recent filming day at Silverstone ahead of the season start. The futuristic drone, capable of hitting F1 speeds up to 220 miles an hour, was developed by Red Bull's Advanced Technology Division in collaboration with Dutch Drone Gods Company. This spectacular overhead shots tracking Verstappen's RB19 and RB20 for an entire lap represent a significant leap forward from the limited drone footage previously seen in F1. However, as F1 Director's Media and Broadcast Dean Locke explains, numerous challenges must be addressed before such technology could be widely implemented during Grand Prix weekends. So the thought in my head automatically is, drone runs out of battery or malfunction or something, and we have essentially a unguided small missile landing on the track, a car hitting it, disrupting airfoil on these vehicles, and crap happening, right? So now that's not to say it shouldn't be done. It's just to say I see where their point is on that. But
Just one more small danger in racing cars that
Yeah.
fast.
I mean,
It's
it's
another
my
obstacle.
view is just this is incredibly positive.
yeah,
This could
100%.
be more impactful than DJI coming out with FPV. This
Mhm.
is just, I mean, the F1 popularity around the world, and in particular in the United States, is skyrocketing. Max Verstappen is a 3-time world champion, and these cars are really insanely fast. And I'm sure most everyone listening to us has watched this video.
Yeah, this
and
video was shared everywhere, all over the
Mm,
place,
yeah,
and
yeah,
tons of non-drone people saw it.
yeah.
Now, if we could just get across the message that, hey, you can fly something kind of like this, and it's not ridiculously hard or expensive. I mean, it's not super simple, but lots of people can do it, and it's within your grasp to give it a shot.
I
Right.
mean, if Dave can do it.
That's right. With my poor aged hands. Not 220 miles an hour, but wow. To me, this is fantastic. This really
Yeah.
helped us with FPV. I'm sure all of us. I was, sent a link from this video from family and friends, and they're like, "Wow, you're into drones. This is so cool,"
Mhm.
and that's great. And so this is definitely a drones for good. And I was going to mention the two drivers, Verstappen and his backup, were both in awe. They're like, look at this. Now people can see how fast we're going. And normally we just see a car goes by, woof, and you don't really get a sense of the speed. And the ride along that they had was just fantastic. And
So-
so,
Yeah.
Do they,
Yeah, I can't.
How
do they
many
not
times was
have
it submitted to the
cameras
news,
on the
Blunty?
cars?
Oh, like a lot, like 15 or 20. What's that, Alex?
Do they not have cameras on the cars?
oh sure, they have
Yeah.
Yeah.
cameras all
Okay.
over the but it's you
Getting
don't
that
get-
bird's eye view is where it's at, right? I mean,
That can keep up. I think the problem is bird's eye view that can keep up is something they've
Yeah.
never had before,
Mm.
right? Because you
Exactly.
can get a bird's eye view when it's passing, but you can't tell how fast the car's going, right? Or you could get the shot from inside the car, and then you're like, well, still don't have any idea of speed or understanding of that. But I feel
Right.
like the drone shots did a really good job of like, we're going really fast, and but we're keeping up, and like, yeah, it was pretty neat to see. It's like a crane that can move at 200 miles an hour, you know?
yeah.
I think, but yeah, I can't imagine them doing this live for a while. That's going to be logistically very difficult to get down and nailed. And like the cars cost a lot of money, and the
Yeah,
teams all
billions.
treasure everything. And like there's a lot of things that they have to work out. And there's all the they're doing like all these different radio signals as well for all the cars to communicate over like their little helmet cam things that they have. And like there's like little Wi-Fi signals for all their radios and stuff they have. And
Right.
yeah,
And
I think this
a
would be a lot of
zillion
work to do.
sensors,
But
yeah.
I
But-
bet we'll see hundreds of like promo videos and advertisements and things when they work this all out with them to do like shots of the cars driving and different shots, like glamour shots of the cars and like production like sets and
Mhm.
stuff that they do for advertisements, like anything they can do, maybe even like working it out so like on qualifying days or on certain track days you can get out and do the shots when people aren't there. I think
Yeah.
would be great.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the-
and
and that's
there's so
the-
much money.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
is definitely. And I mean, and that's the thing, right? So they talk about this, the speed of cars is still ridiculously fast, and we have these events where we're getting over 400,000 people turning up over a weekend, right? So flying over those types of crowds, that's a difference. But they did say, despite the obstacles, Locke suggested that certain track areas without spectators, such as the back straights in China and Austin, could potentially accommodate the drone. So places where there's not characteristically crowds. So. And I mean, it's a NASCAR track, but I live about 4 miles from Phoenix Raceway. And I mean, the amount of people that congregate just for NASCAR is insane. I mean, they camp there for a week leading up to race day. So it's definitely crazy. And definitely a shout out to Shaggy FPV for piloting that. I mean that's epic, and anybody who gets involved with bringing attention to what we do, shout out to you. It's definitely amazing. So
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I've sort of lightly been following the drones that have that design 3-4 years ago and watching them get
yeah.
faster and faster and refining that shape. And then to now see it being used this way is really cool.
Well, and it's funny because I got to watch. His name was Ryan Laidman. He developed a drone that looked exactly like this, and I actually wrote an article for Get FPV when he was going after the world record, the Guinness World Record, utilizing a drone shaped like that. And I mean, he had a lot of help from a lot of different people developing the nose cone and the aerodynamics of that kind of thing. And I mean, it was incredible to watch. And when I saw the picture of the drone, I was like, man, that looks familiar.
Hmm.
So it's definitely come a ways for sure. So
A teardrop or raindrop shape is perfect aerodynamic shape. So
mhm.
you can see why they the arms are all nicely airfoiled. So yeah, they did nice work to streamline this whole thing.
It's got to be
Yeah.
hard to land that still.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
tumble it in,
90 degree
break a
up,
couple
90
props.
degree angle.
Well, and it's funny because I've seen one of these types fly, and you literally just take off vertically and turn sideways and go, like
Mhm.
hit the throttle and go, and that's it. It's I mean, just to be able to view what you're viewing, you're looking at sky when those things take off. So, you know, and the other interesting part is I've said for a long time that this is what I wanted kind of X class to become, right? Big drones on F1 type tracks, um, to bring a level of visual to the spectators. And I think that's the hard part with drone racing. And maybe Alex, you can chime in on this. It's difficult sometimes for spectators when it comes to
Mhm.
you know 5-inch quad spectator drone racing. Spectators, it's hard for them to see, and I think DRL did a good job to a certain aspect, and I think Street League is doing the same thing where they're, you know, LEDs all over the place, bigger drones, that kind of thing. But I don't think you're going to get that same level of spectator as some of these speed sports without making the things bigger and, you know, increasing the sizes of the courses, if that makes sense. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the LEDs help with the spectator aspect a lot. So even multi GPs required it for the champs and night races. Now is just to have LEDs makes it a little bit more visible. Now pilots can just choose whatever color they want right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really assigned per channel or pilot, but it's just that's part of that. And I think the spectator part of racing, at least at the bigger races, is when you're there with the other pilots.
Mm-hmm.
So big watch, because you're still watching the FPV feeds. You're not really watching the race, so you're still watching that. But then you have the whole group of like 30 different pilots sitting around the TV watching the race as it's happening. I think that's where I think that's part of where the spectator experience is in racing right now.
100%. I'm thinking of the making it more mainstream to the general public, right? There's excitement around NASCAR, there's excitement around Formula One. People who aren't even participating in the sport or involved in it in any way, right? They all have a favorite driver, a favorite car, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it hasn't hit mainstream yet, and I think it could. We just need to figure out how.
You know, Alauda is trying to do that with the air speeders. You know, the ones who hired
Mhm.
Mile High. You know, they're trying to put
Yep.
people into people-sized drones and then fly those in a tracks as for spectators. Like to me, like yeah, I mean that's what you're talking about. It's just way bigger, right?
Yeah.
You
I don't
know,
want to put people in danger. I don't know if
right?
I'm all
Well,
on
we're
board with
talking about
that.
But that
racing
makes it more
cars around
interesting.
tracks at 200 miles an hour already, right?
I know, right? But so I don't know.
Yeah.
It's definitely I'd love to see it, but
As XJet says in YouTube, that we should promote drone racing as being super dangerous because it requires remote ID. And even the F1 cars aren't dangerous enough to need remote ID. And
Are
people
the
love the
F1 cars
danger
still being
factor.
tracked?
Yes.
All right. So while we're talking about regulations, I'll just shout out to Alex for making sure that our racing safety guidelines specified a setback, and we allowed people to spectate from where the pilots are. And so some of the rules and safety guidelines of the other CBOs had you way back from the pilots. And Alex said that'll destroy a race. And so, if you're racing, you may want to look at the FPVFC safety guidelines. And again, you do not have to be a member to use our
You can also
guidelines.
fly after you crash with damaged propellers or a dangling battery.
There you go. That's right.
That's even allowed too. So,
I've seen it. I've seen it happen.
No, but that's okay in our safety guidelines. We included that.
you can finish a race, you're allowed to finish.
Exactly.
So this is I brought this up. This is an interview that they did, but I thought this was an interesting picture of some of the internals of this drone.
How do I clone it?
But you can
'Cause
see
I
the
can go-
angle of that FPV camera, right? So you got the FPV camera right up here. You've got the actual recorded HD camera here, and you're just looking at sky when you're taking off. So
Do they have any ability to tilt the FPV camera in motion, kind of like the DJI
No.
drone?
Not on this setup. No.
no,
I'm sure it'd be
doesn't
hard
look
to
like it's on
squeeze
a
it in there,
servo.
but it would be really handy too.
Yeah.
But they got it
Then
under.
you need like almost a clear case, because then your hole for the camera would be even bigger too,
Right.
and that's just more
Mhm.
drag.
Yeah.
Yep. But they talk about the drone a little bit. They got it under a kilogram for the actual
What size
airframe. So
battery are they using?
oh,
That's
don't
what I
know
was
if can
curious
see.
about.
Probably 6.
Well, I meant capacity wise, because
Oh,
that
I don't know.
just to go for a minute and a half at 200 miles an hour.
Are there two of them squeezed in there? There's a lot of
Might be.
XT60s.
Yeah, there might be.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah, it
Alan.
does look like two.
Yeah, because there's one. Well, there's one that we can see there, the 4S. It
And
looks
it
like a
looks like one
4S,
underneath
kinda,
it
doesn't
too.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
So maybe it's 8S.
Yeah. It might be
Oh,
8S.
8S. That's a good
series,
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But I'm just curious on the capacity though. It says batteries. Just
Yeah.
'cause
I mean, they
It's
look like
just so much
1500s,
power.
right?
yeah,
I mean,
they
it's
did.
like,
What?
yeah, they look like 1500s or 1800s. I mean, they don't look
Yeah.
that big. What?
But
Seems like the whole
Yeah.
base is like the whole central core is just battery. So
Mhm.
with
Yep.
with a
Yeah, makes sense. I
maybe
mean,
one-
you build it around the density, the power density. Like, that's what you got to do. So
Yep.
is the flight controller on top or in the bottom?
Yeah, it's hard
I
to
guess
tell.
it's on the bottom.
I would
but I'm
imagine
not
it's
sure.
probably sitting in the base.
Could be sideways on the edge, but
There's a
it's,
lot
I
of
don't
things
know,
on
you're
the
probably
edge
trying to-
there, like under his hand and on the top side too.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they have GPS on there for the speed reading,
Yeah.
velocity reading. At least I assume that's how they're getting velocity. I don't think they're using a pitot tube.
No, I don't think so. It doesn't look like it. So anyway, that's all I've got for the news today. Dave, what you got?
Not a lot. Still working on the standard remote ID work with the Drone Advisory Council, and we're accepting applications for FRIAs. And I got a note from an individual because I've been receiving emails from folks via our Contact Us link on our website, and we have an ID that we've added to our site. It's called FRIA at fpvfc.org, and so that will. So if you want to work with Alex or Dan, you can send to that one. If you want to work with me, send to Contact Us, and we will send in or submit the applications. And please take a look at our resources page and the list of information that you need to apply for a FRIA.
Oh, related to what you were talking about there, Dave, with the DAC, did you see that the FAA's Drone Zone released a little video this week? Was it Question of the Week, talking about, do I need standard remote ID if I do a home-built drone?
I did not.
Uh-oh.
This I have to see.
And yeah, they're
So I'm
they're
waiting.
drawing
I'm
attention
waiting
to
with.
the fact
I'm
that
waiting with bated breath. Did they
that you
say
need
yes?
to do that. Yeah. Yeah, they're just
Okay, so that, of
reiterating the
course, would
rules.
well, that would be different from what Kevin Morris of the FAA said. So, as a pilot, he said it's okay to use a broadcast module, but as a manufacturer or producer, you must incorporate standard remote ID, and that's the essence. This is the essence of the work that we're doing, because this is causing, we assert, a number of, and we're doing surveys behind this to back it up with data. It's causing a number of manufacturers to not be compliant, and they want, some do, some don't, and so we're trying to arrive at a set of recommendations that will have some good sense behind them.
It's only 30 seconds long. I suppose you have to turn on the audio. There's no
Well,
useful
it
words.
says not if it's flown for recreation or education.
Correct.
Yes,
Right.
But
right.
the
But I'm
review-
talking 107 ops.
Oh,
Okay, drone zone, huh? I'll take a look.
Let's see what we got here. So, do I have to put standard remote ID equipment in my home built drone?
And that's all the text on the screen says the entire
Oh,
time.
okay. Oh, okay. Well, that's super.
well, home built
It
is only
says see
recreation.
more. So, not if it's flown solely for your own recreational or educational purposes. Read the full remote ID rule
Yeah,
that
because
nobody can interpret besides people who do this stuff for a living.
Hey,
So
look
this-
what's
so this is
underneath related.
This is significant because this is in
I know that guy.
this is
I do too.
different. This is different from what the FAA was telling us late last year. So, and this is consistent with what we have been saying since January of 2021.
I mean, it's like for anybody other than us, it's not different, right? Like we just are analyzing the way Kevin spoke, and we know like he's speaking differently, right? But like in essence, he's saying the same thing, right? Like that's the same idea. Like it doesn't change anything to any end user. The either answer, right?
There's some nuances, differences there.
It does, because there's one instance that if you make your own drone and then use it for Part 107 operations, you cannot, letter of the law, you cannot just simply put a broadcast module on that drone.
But my point is that if it's home built, you manufactured it, so you're breaking the rules, manufacturing rules, by not putting standard remote ID in. If
That's
this
correct.
is just saying you have to put standard remote ID in a drone you make, it's the same thing. That's what I'm saying. It's the same thing.
That's fair.
It's said
That-
differently, but it's identical in practice.
the
right?
result is the same. All right. And we do have to parse this between manufacturer and operator or pilot.
Yeah, so
Yep.
you can always try those loopholes, like you build it to fly it recreationally, fly it around a little bit. Hey, look, I have a drone that doesn't have standard remote ID. I'm going to put a module on it and fly it under Part 107.
Right.
And you can do that. You can do the flying that way.
Right. Yeah.
Also, I don't know
our
if
our advice to 107 pilots is put a broadcast module on it. You have at least demonstrated intent. And,
Correct.
we would be surprised if the FAA came after someone who was professional, polite, and had a broadcast module on their drone if they gave you a really hard time about that.
Also, the comments here point out the biggest issue here is they're posting this on a page that people are going to read that have no clue what standard remote ID even means.
Right.
Right.
Like people commented under, one person commented under and said, "There's no options for that," and another guy says, "I think you're taking the word standard too seriously. It just means you got to put remote ID on it." Like it's not
And
too
the
serious.
reality
it's a
is you're
term.
not taking it too seriously because
Right.
standard is a
Right, that's what-
standard definition in
Right.
remote
Standard
ID.
Standard
the
is a
term, but they
it's a
don't. But
reserved
you're putting in a
phrase.
30-second clip with no context for people who have no idea what you're even talking about. It's like, who's this video for? Us? Right.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I thought it was
Me.
odd that they're even drawing attention to this. Like, why are they doing that? Who prompted this?
Yeah.
What's their
Well, because
goal with pointing this out?
there's a social media manager at the FAA who has to justify their
Uh-huh.
paycheck.
Somebody wrote this in a Google Doc 8 months ago and typed and
Right.
put it on a bullet list, and now it showed up for the weekly bullet list, and they're like, "Yep, 30-second video, slam it out." Nobody gives, like it's just a
Woo.
thing to do, right? Do you think the person who
Oh,
posted this even understands like what they put?
No.
You know what I mean?
not at
Like,
all.
Okay.
I mean,
Alex, how's that racing scene? Any races coming up?
Well, there is the global qualifier track selection now. So
Great.
we have, so we have had 3 judges who have narrowed down the 50 some odd track submissions from
Wow.
pilots, and now voting is open for you to test out these tracks and fly them and vote for your favorite one. All of the pilots are anonymous, so they just chose different
Smart.
reptiles as the names for each track.
nice.
So
Do you
you
have
log into your multi-GP account to vote. You
There you
can
go.
you can race them on Velocidrone, see what your favorites are. Voting ends on the 16th of March. We had 3 judges, AK, Lamone, and Mr. E. And then the fly-through videos were done by Mayan Hawk for all of those. But yeah, we have a couple of tracks so far.
Excellent.
It's
I
an
had
interesting
I had
variety.
no idea what an annul was. And I had to look it up. I've never
I can
heard
only
that.
guess from context, but yeah, I that was one I don't know either.
Yeah. But yeah,
Excellent.
I think-
Good.
I
And
think
so,
my favorite so far.
so
is
when do they end?
Dallas.
When is this completed? And when are tracks start? When do folks start flying the selected tracks?
So the timeline is right here. So voting goes to the 16th. The track is released on the 22nd, and the GQ season begins on the 29th.
Excellent.
Nice.
Excellent.
So
Coming up.
and chapter organizers have to schedule at least 10 days prior for GQ, just so pilots have enough time to see that there's one out there and to get it done with.
Excellent.
Cool.
That's pretty good with racing.
So you said the Basilisk was your favorite?
Yeah, so far I think that one's my favorite. And then I think Iguana is probably my second favorite right now. But
And you've
I've
flown
only
them all
flown
so
them
far?
a couple of times. I've flown all 6 of them.
Nice. Cool. That's a great way to definitely introduce tracks, is to get them out there, get them published, let people fly them, and vote on it. So cool. I like that.
And MultiGP.
Good job,
took
MultiGP.
process from- Yeah, they changed a lot from last year where they had all the pilots' names and try to avoid it being a favoritism competition.
Yeah, popularity
So
contest.
now
Right?
it's all fully anonymous and
50.
by the-
That's a lot.
yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, those judges had to narrow it down flying all of those tracks and see
Yeah, that's
what
cool.
was good, what wasn't. But
Well, good on them.
Six.
That's definitely a step up. So great job to them on getting that out, and we're excited to see which one wins. That'll be cool. All right, Blunty, anything from you, sir?
Nope.
All right, Dan.
I already covered everything I've got.
All right, Rob, you got anything over there, brother?
Try to unmute. Nope, nothing to add.
Right, cool. All right, guys. Well, that'll wrap us up for this evening. Thanks for joining us. Definitely grateful to have you guys here and interacting with us. But we'll see you guys in another 2 weeks. And weather's getting better for most of the U.S., so except Dan.
Roller coaster ride up here. That's all.
You know, it's like I can fly today. I can't fly today. I can fly. Well, you fly in the middle dead of winter. So,
And then when we did have good warm days, it was 30-mile-an-hour winds, which you can
You know,
fly
I'm-
in, but it's just a different experience.
so I'm curious, Dan, just to close us out. You know, when you're out flying and it's rainy and it's mosquito season, how many bugs you killing through a flight?
No idea. Probably a lot. But I know I'm hiding inside my car to stay sane. 'Cause you cannot fly with mosquitoes attacking your hands and fly well
That's
at all.
hilarious. Oh, I can't even imagine. All right. Well, thanks guys for showing up tonight, and we'll see you in another 2 weeks. Have a great night and get out there and get flying.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Great evening. Take care.
What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll